Once again, welcome to the module reading in developmental psychology. We're going to tackle the Jerome Bruner's theory of learning. Once again, welcome to the module reading in developmental psychology. And I have echo. In this week's module, this is we're going to discuss Jerome Bruner's theory of learning, as well as theories related to learning and development. At the end of this lesson, the student shall have an understanding of Jerome Bruner's theory of learning, and students shall learn theories on the study of human cognitive development. So who is this Jerome Bruner from 1915 to 2016? Jerome Bruner is an American psychologist who made significant contribution to human cognitive psychology and cognitive learning theory in educational psychology. He published his study in 1947 titled Value and Need of as Organizing Factors in Perception, in which poor and rich children were asked to estimate the size of coins or wooden disc, the size the size of American pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and half dollars. Beginning around 1967, Bruner turned his attention to the subject of developmental psychology and studied the way children learn. He coined the term scaffolding to describe the way children often build on the information they have already mastered. Cognitive development theory. The outcome of cognitive development is thinking. The intelligent mind creates from experience generic coding system that permits one to go beyond the data to new and possibly fruitful prediction. Bruner, 1957, page 234. Cognitive growth involves an interaction between basic human capabilities and culturally invented technologies that serve as amplifiers of these capabilities. The aim of education should be to create autonomous learners, for example, learning to learn. In his research on the cognitive development of children, 1966, Jerome Bruner proposed three modes of representation. Number one is enactive representation or action-based. Number two is iconic representation, image-based. And number three, symbolic representation. This is the language-based. Three modes of representation. Number one is the enactive. It involves encoding action-based information. It involves encoding action-based information and storing it in our memory. For example, in the form of movement as a muscle memory, a baby might remember the action of shaking a rattle. Bruner believed that learning begins with an action, feeling, and manipulating. Breyer, 2009. Number two is iconic. This is where information is stored visually. Again, iconic. This is where information is stored visually in the form of images. A mental picture in the mind's eye. This may explain why, when we are learning a new subject, it is often helpful to have diagrams or illustration to accompany verbal information. One way of doing this is to draw images of objects on paper. Again, one way of doing this is to draw images of objects on paper or to picture them in one's head. Number three is symbolic. This is where information is stored in the form of a code or symbols such as language. This is the most adaptable form of representation, for action and image have fixed relation to the which to that which they represent. A dog is symbolic representation of a single class. The words and symbols are abstraction. They do not necessarily have a direct connection to the information. Scaffolding theory. Bruner was similar to the psychologist Lev Vygotsky in a way that he emphasized the social nature of learning, citing that other people should help a child develop skills through the process of scaffolding. The concept of scaffolding is very similar to Vygotsky's notion of the zone of proximal development, and it's not uncommon for the term to be used interchangeably. Scaffolding involves helpful, structured interaction between an adult and a child to help the child achieve a special goal. Spiral, spiral curriculum. This involves information being structured so that complex ideas can be taught at a simplified level first, and then revisited at more complex levels later on. Instead of focusing on relatively long periods on specific narrow topics, a special or the spiral curriculum tries to expose students to a wide variety of ideas over and over. Ideally, teaching this way should lead to children being able to solve problems by themselves. Discovery learning. The concept of discovery learning implies that students construct their knowledge for themselves, also known as constructivist approach. The role of the teacher should not be to teach information by rote learning, but instead to facilitate the learning process. To do this, a teacher must give students the information they need, but without organizing them. The use of the spiral curriculum can aid the process of discovery learning. So we have this again, the references from Bruner J.S. 1957, Going Beyond the Information Given, New York, Norton. Another is the Bruner J.S. 1960, The Process of Education, Cambridge, Mass., Harvard University Press. Another is the Bruner J.S. 1961, The Act of Discovery, Harvard Educational Review 31, 21 to 32. Bruner J.S. 1966, Toward a Theory of Instruction, Cambridge, Mass., Bellcap Press. Another one is Bruner J.S. 1973, The Relevance of Education, New York, Norton. Bruner J.S. 1978, The Role of the Dialogue in Language Acquisition in A. Sinclair, R. J. Jarviel, and W. J. M. Levelt. The Child Concept of Language, New York, Springer Verlag. Then the last one is the Wood D.J., Bruner J.S., and Ross G., 1976, The Role of Tutoring in Problem Solving, Journal of Child Psychiatry and Psychology, 89 to 100. And that's all for today, the Jerome Bruner's Theory of Learning. See you to another module learning in developmental psychology.